Welcome to the Starbright Foundation's Once Upon a Fairy Tale. This is Little Red Riding Hood.
It had taken me weeks to make the perfect birthday surprise for my beloved daughter Primrose, who I call Red. A pair of red leggings, carefully appliqued with deep red velvet roses to perfectly match her favorite red riding hood. I finished them the night before her birthday, but in the morning I discovered a mouse had gotten into my sewing basket and chewed away half of the roses. I had to get Red out of the house so I could secretly repair her gift in time. So I asked her to deliver my weekly basket of goodies to Granny, who lives in the wood. I must admit I felt a bit anxious about letting Red go. She sometimes has so many things in her head that she forgets where she is, and that can lead to trouble. But the sky was sunny and blue. The birds were singing their hearts out, and it was her birthday after all. Red's vivid blue eyes sparkled with excitement from behind her round, gold-rimmed glasses. "Don't speak to strangers," I cautioned as I handed her Granny's basket packed with parsnip soup and biscuits. "And don't get distracted. You must be back before dark. But above all," I warned, "never wander away from the path." "Okay," Red said. As she began to skip away, I realized I was still holding the rose soap I'd meant to send to Granny. I caught up with her at the end of our walk and placed it in the basket, then watched my dear girl until I saw the last flash of her red hood disappear into the wood. Turning back toward our cottage, I noticed something glimmering on our doorstep. Red's glasses! Oh no! I ran up the path calling after her, but the woods only answered with the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze. I took a deep breath. Red knows the way to Granny's house by heart. Have faith, I thought. I closed my eyes, wished my girl well, and prayed she'd stay on the path until she was safely knocking on the bright blue door of Granny's house.
A wolf of my stature deserves a nutritious meal every now and then. And there's nothing quite as tasty or good for you as a tiny girl in a red cape. I can't live on 3 little pigs alone. Hello, food chain. So I was sunbathing in the woods when this fabulous snack came skipping down the path. Did I say snack? I meant little girl in a red riding cape. Now, most wolves would eat anything without saying hello, but I insist on being courteous with little children before I devour them. A little get to know you, then it's lunchtime. "Good day, little girl," I chimed. She turned and said hello to a tree. This little girl needed glasses like I needed a hot meal. "Over here," I waved my claws. "What's your name?" "Red," she said, then mumbled something about how her mother told her never to talk to strangers. "I am Wolf von Big Baden," I bowed. "Pleased to meet you. I am no longer a stranger." She seemed very afraid. I loved that. She quickly explained she was off to visit her sick grandmother who lived deep in the woods, and then excused herself. Normally, I would have gobbled her up right then and there, but I figured, why not make this a grand feast? Munch Granny first, and save the little red dumpling for dessert. Get the entire food chain. So I let her go. I knew the house she was talking about. It always had a basket of muffins piled in the trash out back. Even the flies were going, no way. I took the high road, Red took the low road. I knew I'd get to Granny before her. I swallowed the old lady in one big gulp. I love it when they struggle and talk on the way down. My mother always warned me to chew my food for better digestion, but did I listen? Oh, the heartburn. Anyway, I disguised myself in one of Granny's nightgowns, something sheer but still not too revealing. I must say I was stunning. Then I leapt under her bed covers or the lovely duvet, just as Red knocked on the door. "Come in," I called out in my best high voice. This was going to be fun. Dinner and a show. My stomach growled in anticipation.
Working deep in the woods splitting timber and firewood, I don't see a whole lot of human folks. But I never am lonely. Yeah, the forest creatures are my friends. Except for them nasty critters that prey on helpless little animals. Yeah, those little creatures get my dander up, that's for sure. Why, I'd do anything to even the score between the likes of the lambs and the wolves. Just thinking about it makes me swing my axe like some crazy samurai guy. Beware Gunderson, the big man with 2 axes! Well, now my whooping was cut off by the happy sound of Little Red Riding Hood singing and skipping down the path. She was carrying real pretty wildflowers in a nice little wicker basket. I hadn't seen her in some time, but I would never forget that little girl. She always wore red, of course, and was so polite when she and her mama passed by on their way to Granny's house. But today, 2 things struck me kind of odd. See, Red was squinting her eyes up a whole lot, and she was alone. Of course, she was a lot older now, and it was none of my business, but I was just a little bit surprised that her mama had let her travel out here all alone. Well, I didn't want to scare Red, but I had to warn her to be mindful. "These woods are filled with dangers, Red." That's what I told her. She gave me that look like she felt too smart to listen to the likes of me. And then told me some story about how she'd already met up with a wolf and handled him just fine. Well, I didn't believe her, of course. I didn't tell her that. I just strongly suggested that she move along quick and direct like. She thanked me very politely as always and went on her way. What a brave little girl, I thought. There is no way in creation I would ever let my 3 little girls travel alone in these woods no matter how confident they pretended to be. So I stopped my chopping and I ran after Little Red to see her safely to Granny's. I only hoped I could catch her. She sure was a fast one.
I'm a very attractive lady. I eat healthy, tend my own vegetable garden, and walk 3 miles to church each and every Sunday. I don't understand how living so well I took to feeling so poorly. The doctor ordered me to bed, and I just hate feeling shut in, but I do look forward to the visits from my daughter and the occasional treat of seeing my grandbaby, Primrose Red. That girl never calls, but she does email. It had been quite a while since I'd seen Red, but I was expecting her that afternoon. Right on time, I heard her sweet voice echoing through the house. Now, what I believe I've neglected to mention is that on that very day, I found myself inside the belly of a wolf. Yes, I'd been swallowed up before I knew it. I was angry and confused and crowded into his dark, messy, overheated guts. It was not very nice at all. And truth be told, I just could not help thinking that I'd spent my life trying to eat healthy and do the right things, and I just ended up feeling poorly and being eaten by a wolf. Where was justice? But my thoughts and worries quickly returned to Red. You see, the wolf had already eaten me, and although I was just a very nice size 12, there wasn't much room left in his stomach for her. I feared he might only eat part of her and then leave her for dead. I kicked and hollered from inside, "Red! Run for your life!" But my carrying on just sounded like a lot of belly grumbling and did little more than make that wolf burp a whole lot. All I could do was wait in there and pray and listen to Red's voice. Now let me say this. I wasn't especially happy with what I heard. How on God's great green earth could Red think even for a second that the big, ugly, hairy, burping, overgrown dog in my nightie was her fine-looking granny? What was wrong with that girl?
Now, the optometrist calls my eyesight horrible. I say the world's just more interesting when it's blurry. Besides, I hate how I look in glasses. and I hadn't even realized I'd forgotten them when I got to Gran's cottage. I peeked into her room on my way to warm up the soup, and she looked a lot worse than hot soup and muffins could cure. But I tried to seem casual, you know. "Hey, Gran, your eyes seem abnormally large." Then I was thinking, what could that be, a thyroid disorder? But, then I got distracted by her big nose. No disease I knew included bulging eyes and a humongous nose. Gran must have sensed my distress because she smiled, and her teeth were jagged. Well, my mind was racing. I thought, is this my Gran? She seems familiar, but where are my glasses now? I really need them. And then I hear, "I'm going to eat you alive." Well, that made me realize that my glasses were probably the least of my concerns. This was that wolf that I'd seen on the road. And I thought, well, I don't know, if he's hungry, I'll just give him the soup. And in my panicked hastiness, I just accidentally threw the whole boiling pot at his face. And then his mouth flew open, but instead of a howl, Gran came flying out like she'd been shot from a cannon. And the wolf was down now, but I knew not for good, and I had no plan. I mean, what, do I leave Gran alone and try to fight a wolf? What if I lost? Or, maybe we could get swallowed whole and start a fire in his belly like they did in Pinocchio. I don't know. Suddenly, the woodsman burst through the door, axes swinging. And the wolf tried to run, but, before he was gone, so was his tail. So, well, we were saved. Of course, the papers got it all wrong. Big bad Red Riding Hood, a hero. The truth was, I ignored my mother and put Gran and me in a lot of danger. Well, I guess I did accidentally keep us alive long enough to get us saved by the woodsman. Well, that was good. Oh, heck, I am enjoying my new reputation. And I'm sporting a wolf-tailed collar on my red coat. It's actually a reminder. Don't talk to strangers. Always wear my glasses. And remain on what I really cherish. My own path.
Presenting Rumpelstiltskin. I'm the hay man, or hay person, or whatever. I deliver hay to the royal stable. It's not a grand job. Of course, without my hay there would be no horses, which would mean, well, no real hunting and, no foreign wars. In fact, without me, the entire kingdom would grind to a halt. And so I humbly serve. Now, when I heard the king was searching for the perfect girl to marry his son, the prince, it was as if he were calling out to me. You see, I have a daughter. In fact, I call her Princess. She's sweet, clever, brilliant, a genius, really. I'm not bragging. I can't help but see Princess for what she is. At any rate, when the king visited the stables to admire my hay, or possibly his horses, I didn't want to be pushy, but I couldn't allow him to miss the opportunity to hear about my daughter. I simply began talking about her in a voice loud enough for him to hear if he chose to. He seemed to be ignoring me. So I found myself saying, "She can whistle underwater. She can throw a pig through a donut." Nothing. Finally, I exclaimed, "She can spin straw into gold!" Well, it turns out royalty has no sense of humor when it comes to gold. Silly king, and silly me. For now I had to go home and tell my daughter what I'd done. "You said what? I could spin straw into gold?" she cried. "Yes," I said. "Can you, by the way?" She glared. I had to ask, especially in light of the king's decree to chop off my head if she couldn't do it. Clearly, it hadn't occurred to him that such an action would seriously impede my ability to deliver hay and thus threaten his kingdom's very existence. "You can do anything if you put your mind to it," I urged my daughter as I took her into my arms. "I only want you to be happy. And royal, if possible." Hoping for the best, I watched her ride off toward the castle and rubbed my vulnerable neck.
What a magnificent young prince that boy has become. I mused, as my son thundered by on his marvelous stallion. He will make a fine king. But what I truly desire for him is a lifetime of love, with a strong, caring bride at his side. Certainly he'll have plenty to say about who he marries. I'd never force my will on him. We'll know her when we find her. He'll know her when we find her. My thoughts were interrupted by the booming voice of the stable's groomsman. I always listen to my subjects. They are the life's blood of the land. He was bragging that his daughter could spin straw into gold. I do not tolerate lying, and certainly this boast was a lie. But it captured my attention. How might this girl respond to her father's claims? I ordered him to send her to the palace at once. On first sight, she was attractive, if somewhat plain. Then, as she spoke, it became clear she was a rare beauty, sparkling with keen intellect and a royal nature. I liked her. Dare I say, she reminded me of me. You have until sunrise to spin this straw into gold, I explained. If you can't do it, you and your boastful father will suffer dire consequences. I didn't intend to carry out my threats. A father's love is not a crime. Truly, had it meant my son's happiness, I might have boasted my kingdom to be made of diamonds. Astonishingly, before my very eyes, this girl spun something far more precious than gold. She simply bowed her head and said she understood. She could have declared her father a liar to save herself. Instead, she preserved his honor, demonstrating character beyond measure. At that moment, she delivered on her father's promise and won my heart. But I didn't let on just yet. I headed off for a well-deserved nap, wondering what she'd say by morning and what my son would think of this extraordinary girl. What lovely children they would make.
Face it, I'm not human. I'm an object. Every day, up early, spin a few yards, then sit in the corner. Ugh, it's a boring life. But things took an interesting turn when Royal Page Albert showed up and dumped a pile of straw around me. Next came the king himself, followed by a beautiful farm girl. The king demanded she spin that straw into gold! I almost bust my bobbin laughing. Straw into gold? What a riot! And the girl started crying when he left. Poor little sister. Well, if I had arms, I'd have given her a hug. Just then, an odd gnome fella sprang in and announced he could spin straw into gold. He grabbed the locket from the girl's neck and set at me to work. His gnarly fingers worked at a lightning speed. The straw hummed through me, melting into liquid that he blew and twisted into threads of gold. Oh, it made me giddy. Well, and then he disappeared. The king was shocked. More gold, he demanded. At the snap of the king's fingers, Albert hauled in 10 more bales of straw. I was glad. I was hoping for another feel-good session with the freaky guy. But the girl was pretty wigged out. When Trollman returned, she gave him the only other thing she owned, a tin ring that belonged to her mother. In minutes, gold was everywhere. The king couldn't believe she'd done it again. He sent us to a straw-filled barn in the middle of nowhere so she couldn't rely on any tricks, and said he wanted to see mounds of gold. Now, I can't weave the big guy's thoughts, but it seemed this whole thing wasn't about gold to him. After just 2 days of being surrounded by the shiny stuff, even I was starting to tire of it. You know, like chocolate. It's great, but you don't want it every day. I could only imagine how a bazillionaire king might feel. He was clearly after something more precious. I just hoped that in her desperation to deliver it, that sweet girl wouldn't give up something she'd later regret.
I'm classically grotesque. I'm 4 feet tall, I have mange rot, and my breath smells like manure and feet. It's like I fell from the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. Truly, I'm hideous. But most of all, I'm lonely. The chances of me finding a long-term relationship with anybody are slim. The chance of me having kids, about none. When I was born, the doctor slapped my mother. I'm gross. But what I really wanted was to be a father. Anyway, in my spare time, and ugly trolls have lots of it, I started spinning straw into hay. I wasn't making a cent. Eventually, I developed a magical process, and it was like I'd stumbled into a gold mine. Hayenic alchemic counterprocessing. In plain English, I could now spin straw into gold. Now, when my ear hair picked up vibes that there was a maiden in distress who might become the heir-producing queen if she could spin straw into gold, I knew this was the chance for both of us to get what we wanted. I'd help her in exchange for her first-born child. She could always have more kids. So I zapped myself to the castle. I don't exactly have a way with the ladies. I chickened out of asking this gorgeous girl for what I really wanted. Twice, actually. I just swapped whatever trinkets she had for spinning the gold and pretended I didn't want anything else. But when the king moved her to a straw-filled barn for a final test, I knew it was my last shot. I asked for the kid. This girl knew if she didn't deliver gold, the king was going to kill her dad. High drama. Dun dun dun! She struck the deal, last minute, just as the king's horses were approaching. Look, there was a chance the prince and this girl wouldn't even like each other, let alone get married and have babies, and we had made a fair deal. I didn't have any guilt. I had vanished. I'd gone off patiently, waiting for the birth of my child.
Blessed with a loving husband and a beautiful new daughter, my life could not have been more wonderful. Sounds of celebration echoed through the castle as I set my happily gurgling Olivia in her cradle. I treasured the moment. But suddenly, I was overcome with the eerie feeling of being watched. I turned and my heart sank. The little man had returned. I couldn't give him my daughter. I knew that without his help I might never have met my husband, nor had Olivia. But even trapped as I felt amidst those piles of hay, I should never have lost sight of how my promise could shape my future. I frantically offered him castles, jewels, fine horses, anything. He waved me off. Then, oddly, he appeared to feel a twinge of guilt. He offered me 3 chances to fairly undo my promise. But as he explained the game, my heart sank again. How could I guess his name? I blurted, "Robert! Arthur! Henry!" He sang, a grin creeping across his face. "Charles! Edward!" I tried. "No, no, no," he shouted. In a puff of smoke, the little man and my first chance to guess his name were gone. The next evening, I gazed longingly at my tiny princess. A sharp breeze cut the air. He was back. I tried to stay calm. Only 2 chances remained. An odd man might have a peculiar name. Balthazar. Cornelius. Zabidi, I began. He waved his finger. No. I grew so frustrated, so angry. Spartacus. Lysander. Orlando. He giggled, then vanished again. Just 1 chance left. Heartbroken, I held Olivia close. I found comfort only in the thought of my husband, due to return from the hunt that evening. Perhaps our love could somehow overpower the little man's magic and ensure our baby would remain with us forever. As if he heard my thoughts, at that instant I heard my husband's whistled song drawing ever nearer in the hall. He opened the door and I turned to face him. For the first moment in days, my tears paused.
Around my 20th birthday, my father began his campaign to help choose a wife for me. Every well-heeled noble woman was dragged to our castle, but the last thing I wanted was a boring, regal marriage to some society cream puff. If I married, I wanted a girl with whom I could be myself, and I'd always imagined I'd find her myself. But then, surprisingly, Father explained he'd met a simple farm girl who I might find interesting. We arranged a casual meeting in the gardens. For me, it was love at first sight. She was gorgeous, though her magic ran deeper. In her eyes, I saw the edge of the universe. And when she started joking about the royal guards, I knew I'd found my soulmate. I wanted to slay a dragon for her right then and there. Just when I thought life couldn't be any happier, little Olivia arrived in our lives. I was at peace inside and out. Sword fighting could never come close to the thrill of dancing with my baby in my arms. I went off to hunt for the feast in celebration of Olivia's birth, and I missed her and her mother terribly while I was gone. I ran to the nursery the moment our party returned to the castle. I couldn't wait to hold my daughter and to share the strangest story with my wife. Deep in the woods, I'd seen an odd-looking little man dancing in circles. I'm sure he was some kind of lunatic. He was chanting a bizarre sort of nursery rhyme that went something like this. "Oh, I am Rumpelstiltskin. The cat could never have gotten out if she hadn't let him in. Need gold or scrap or tin, I'll spin. A child is the prize I win." Oddly, my wife erupted into laughter and tears at my story. Did she find it funny? Perhaps she was just emotional because she missed me as I missed her. It didn't matter. I held her close, glad to be home.
As a newborn baby, I can only see things close up. I notice stuff like that my feet are smaller than my mother's thumbs, and I can just about focus on the mobile of golden crowns dangling above me while I hug my soft pink blankie and drift in and out of sleep. But my favorite thing to stare at is my mother's beautiful face. When she holds me, her eyes sparkle, her hair glistens like gold, and her smiles and kisses make me feel safe and warm. But when Mom cuddled me this evening, something was wrong. The sparkle in her eye was replaced by a frightened tear, which ran down her rosy cheek. What did I do to make her happiness go away? I thought. Just then, my wonderful father bounded into the room. He always makes the corners of Mom's mouth go up. He got her happiness back. He gathered us up in his strong arms and told us about his busy day. Mother hardly seemed to be listening, until he mentioned seeing a strange man named Rumpelstiltskin. With that word, everything changed. She laughed and cried happy tears and kissed Father all over his face. I don't know why the word made her so joyful, but I was glad it did. I dozed off to a peaceful sleep. As Mother rocked me the next day, we had a visitor. A little man, not much bigger than me, but old and odd. He'd visited a few times before. Mother was never herself when he was around. "What's my name? Last 3 guesses," he snapped, darting around with fancy footsteps. "Harvey," Mother said calmly. "Nope," he laughed. "Not Harvey." "Stan, then?" she tried. He giggled and snorted. I didn't understand what was going on, but it didn't seem good. Finally, "Could it be Rumpelstiltskin?" she sang. That word, it made people act so weird. At the sound of it, the little man got so angry, he twisted up and drilled himself into the floor. We never saw that little man again. No one ever spoke of him. And of course, Mother, Father, and I lived happily ever after together.
And now, The Frog Prince.
I must retreat to the privacy of our royal gardens to play with my dearest friend Hester, because everyone laughs and whispers when they see me talking to her in the palace. Hester is my doll. Now, we were playing catch by the pond, while I was throwing Hester in the air and, catching her, when it was as if she decided, mid-air, without so much as a by your leave, time for a swim. She plunged into the water and sank out of sight. Well, now I've only learned to lounge by a pool, not swim in one. So I started screaming, "Hester, swim! Swim! Somebody, anybody, please, help!" And a croaky voice answered. Odd, but true. A big, slippery frog spoke to me from his lily pad, and he was willing to help. "Quick," I commanded. "Jump in, save Hester. She has blonde hair and a pink dress. You can't possibly miss her. Oh, for heaven's sake, I'll give you anything." "Listen," he said. "Just let me be your friend. You know, we'll enjoy our suppers together, have friendly sleepovers, hang out." "What? Me? Friends with a frog? Ugh, please. And why would he want to be friends with me? I can't swim, and I've actually eaten frog's legs. One can't be friends with an entree, you know. But then I could get Hester back if I just told Slimy what he wanted to hear." "Okay, Frog. Okay. I promise," I said. I was thinking, of course, promise, schmomise. The frog dove in straight away, and 2 seconds later, Hester was at my feet. I grabbed her, and I ran away as fast as I could. The faint weight behind me gave way to a little voice inside my head. "A promise is a promise." My conscience. Promises are made to be broken, I reminded myself. But the voice nagged on. "Isabel von Trifle, you know what's right." "Oh, shut up, voice. Shut up," I shouted. "He's a frog, for goodness sakes. Surely he's already forgotten everything and carried on fly hunting or whatever froggies do." I forced his sorrowful bug eyes out of my mind, and I hurried to the dining room to join Mother for supper.
Well, let me tell you, I'm more than a bug-eyed, tongue-flicking, fly-eating slug sucker. I am a real prince. And if the right girl would just give me the chance, man, I'd give her the world on a lily pad. But pickings are slim around the bog, so I hopped to the pond at the palace, because rumor had it that there was this interesting, beautiful, hard-to-get-to-know girl who lived there, the princess. I spotted her across the water. Ooh, my heart leaped, and so did I, because at that exact moment she dropped her doll into the pond. "Oh, hey, I croaked. Let me get that for you. I got it." "Oh, thanks, I'll give you anything," she gushed, which I thought was pretty cool, given that she was royalty, and I was, an amphibian. Well, just promise that you'll be my friend," I said. She laughed. She said, but you're I turned to jump away at that point. "Oh, well, then goodbye, Hester." "Goodbye," I sang. Oh, she almost fell into the water at that point, trying to stop me. "Okay, fine. I'll be your friend," she said. I dove in, I plucked her doll out of a nest of green algae, and I glided toward the surface. Well, through the sunlit, rippled water, the princess's face, it just looked like an oil painting. My stomach tingled in a way that it hadn't since I'd gulped down that juicy 3-ounce worm. I was a tingle. I came up, I bowed my head, I laid the soggy doll at her feet. Her sweet voice then rang out and said, "Thanks, Frog." Oh, but as I looked up, she was running away. Ouch! At the rate that we're stepped on, my kind is on the verge of extinction. Not frogs, nice guys. Now listen, frankly, I didn't even know if I liked this girl, but I'm telling you, I was determined. She was going to give me a chance, warts and all. I hopped after her at a very high speed until we reached a huge wooden door in the castle, which the lovely princess slammed in my face. At that point, my heart was thumping so hard in my chest, I looked like a belching bullfrog. I took a deep breath, and I knocked. And I waited. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited.
As I gazed at my little princess across our candlelit dining table, my mind began to wander. I thought to myself, I'm a good queen, but being a good mother is a much harder job. You see, I want Isabel to have a comfortable life, but most importantly, I want her to be a good and happy person. Well, perhaps she does have a few too many ruby hair clips and ponies with braided tails, and she's not as patient as she could be, but she's also so loving and energetic. Anyway, this one night I was startled by an odd slurping sound, and then came a soft knock. Isabel jumped up and opened the door. She gasped and then slammed it so hard my goblet of guava juice nearly tipped. I quietly waited for an explanation. But my daughter slumped ever further into her chair until she hit bottom, and out the story came. You see, she dropped her doll in the pond and asked a frog to rescue it. In exchange, the slimy thing was to be welcomed into our home as her friend. Well, I don't think my daughter was very happy with the deal she made with this frog. Anyway, I strongly believe promises must be kept. It's a principle I've held dear since my 10th birthday, when the royal conjurer failed to produce the purple dog I was promised. As a child and as future queen, Isabel must uphold the highest standards of decency. Our feelings about slimy pond life aside. So, beginning with my purple dog and ending with her regal position, I explained why she had to keep her promise to this frog. "Guess who's coming to dinner?" I sighed as together we welcomed our warty guest. What a simply charming, harmless creature he was. He rolled back on his heels and chatted cordially about history and nature and sports, and then thanked us for our hospitality and asked to be shown upstairs. "You're probably exhausted," I exclaimed. "Sweetheart, show Frog to your room." Isabel made a terribly scowly face, which I pretended not to see. "Don't stay up all night giggling," I called after her. I couldn't help but smile as I watched them disappear at the top of the stairs. "Good night, my love."
For generations, my robin's egg blue silk velvet cover has embraced the precious head of every princess who has lived in this castle, as she's dreamed her dreams, cried her tears, or just slept peacefully through the night. My current princess is quite wonderful. She fluffs me all the time and loves every living creature. But I must say I was amazed and disgusted when she entered our bedchamber with a frog cupped in her delicate hands. I noticed his eyes were peculiarly human, but I scarcely had time to think about how odd that was before he started nagging my princess to let him sleep on me. The thought undid my stuffing. Thankfully, my princess was quite firm. I was a very special pillow for her use only. But the frog kept pushing. I nearly burst at the seams before she harshly banished him to the farthest corner of the bed. They both fell asleep quickly, but the frog was restless. I watched helplessly as he inched up, snuggling his warty body into me, right next to my princess's sleeping face. I was miserable. When morning finally arrived, my princess opened her eyes to find herself cheek to cheek with the annoying creature. She was so startled that without thinking, she picked him up and flung him. I had a nice chuckle over that, I must admit, but my princess felt very bad. She'd never want to hurt anything. She rushed over to comfort the fallen frog and, quite unexpectedly, planted a soft kiss on his slimy skin. Suddenly a stillness filled the room, shattered by a mysterious, silent explosion. When the smoke cleared, that ugly frog had transformed into the most beautiful boy I'd ever seen. He bowed his head and took my princess's hands in his own. Together, they dreamily propped their heads on me and began their friendship by sharing the stories of their lives. I proudly puffed up to my fullest, bolstered by the knowledge that yet again I was a centerpiece of a pivotal moment in our kingdom's history.
I'm very sorry to say that my dad is a witch. Yes, a witch, not a warlock, and it is embarrassing. Whenever I do something wrong, he puts a spell on me. But I hadn't done very much wrong to deserve being turned into a frog. All I'd done was buried my little sister in the snow so my dog could practice avalanche rescue. She was only gone for a day and she was fine, a bit cold, but fine. Anyway, Dad gave me 3 weeks as a frog, with parole after 2 for good behaviour, or alternatively, kissing a princess. Life as a frog wasn't too bad. I developed a taste for small gnats and made friends with a jolly 5-pound bullfrog named Serge, who showed me to the palace grounds of someone called Princess Pushy, who I'd heard was extremely beautiful. Now, I hadn't realised that I'd hopped in my sleep onto her pillow after that wonderful warm evening of food and conversation. I felt warm and woozy and cosy, until suddenly, smack, I found myself flying through the air and banging into a wall. The impact left me cross-eyed. It seemed as though 2 princesses were leaning over me with furrowed brows and really ridiculous morning bedhead hair. My eyes cleared as the princess lifted me in her hand and kissed me, gently. Her breath smelt of roses and lilies and gardens and cherry coke and chewing gum. The next thing I knew, my froggy tongue was rolling in and out with excitement like a party trumpet, and I let out this massive burp, and suddenly, boom, I was a person again, still standing on her hand, which was obviously quite painful for her. I stepped back, apologised, and then we both seemed to speak at once. "What's that funny smell of pondweed?" she said. And I replied, "Would you like to borrow a comb?" Anyway, I've since discovered that the princess's beauty is actually matched by her heart, which has grown far warmer since our first meeting by the pond. We spend most of the time in the castle, which keeps me safely out of the reach of Dad's broomstick, thank God. And I've kept my frog friend Serge, who's now got rather grand and is carried around by a footman on a velvet cushion. And I'm pretty certain that all of us are going to live happily ever after. Except for those gnats, because I'm afraid to say I still have quite an appetite for them.
And now, Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Hey. My name is Goldilocks. Well, Goldie to my friends, of which I have many. My real name is Gretel. And no, I don't have a brother named Hansel, like I haven't heard that a million times. But that's a different story. Okay, so here's me. I'm about 4 feet tall, and I have green eyes and unusually big ears. Ugh, hey, it's genetic, okay? A person can't help the way they look. But anyway, my hair is really blonde. No, seriously, I mean, I highlighted a little, but I'm really blonde. Brassy, like my personality. Okay, well, people think I'm the adventurous type, but I'm really just embracing my flamboyant side. Okay, but the truth is, I want to tell you about the biggest, actual, most way cool, real adventure that happened to me just a couple of weeks back. I went into the woods because I'm really not afraid of anything. Now, my folks always warned me about wandering too far from our house, and I usually listen. And one time, I didn't. I left our house singing and skipping, and before I knew it, I was lost in the woods. Okay, they were right. Whatever. Okay, now I was getting a little nervous, and I came across this oh so cute little cottage. I knocked, thinking I'd ring up the folks, but nobody was home. Well, they don't call me Goldilocks for nothing. Long story short, I let myself in. Okay, now there were 3 bowls of oatmeal on the table, which I thought was a little bizarre, but I'd skipped breakfast and I was starving. So I got ready to dig my spoon into the biggest bowl, but it was boiling hot. So I scooped a bite from the bowl next to it. Okay, it was cold, which, by the way, is totally gross, and the smallest bowl had sweet little swirls of brown sugar on top and just a hint of steam. Okay, it was perfect. So I sat down, but I couldn't reach the seat of the biggest chair, and the second chair was so soft and squishy that I sank in and I got claustrophobic. And the last chair was just my size, but when I sat on it, it broke into a million pieces, which made me feel rotten because, you know, I'm just a little thing and I tried to put it back together, but I'm not very mechanically inclined. So anyway, I went upstairs to look for the phone. Okay, but between my attempted woodwork and the stairway hike, I was worn out. When I saw 3 beds and all I could think was N-A-P. I flopped down on the littlest bed, and I think that I fell asleep because my mind drifted from imagining what kind of people would have no phone and go off leaving oatmeal on the table and have 3 sizes of everything, but hello, no phone, to flying snakes, to marionettes and clouds, and, you know, I think footsteps, but I was so comfy that, it's just part of the dream, or, I don't know, maybe it was real, but, I didn't care.
When danger dares to cross my path, I stretch to my majestic 12-foot height, thrash my fearsome 4-inch claws, and roar a sharp-toothed growl backed by every ounce of my 1,000 pounds. But I don't do it often. Mama Bear doesn't like it when I raise my voice. She likes my teeth better when I smile, which, of course, makes me smile a lot. The other thing Mama Bear isn't fond of is my big belly. And aw shucks, she's right. A few extra 100 pounds calls for a large dose of discipline, diet, and exercise. I just don't care much for exercise. In fact, on the morning of the incident, I'd fixed a big bowl of high-fiber oatmeal and set it on the table, hoping to get out of our morning walk. Mama sweetly thanked me, and then insisted we hit the road and enjoy breakfast when we came back. How could I argue? She and my boy were willing to join me in my battle of the bulge. Along the way, Mama generously ignored my checking the beehives for honeycomb, looking under logs for delicious moth larvae, and grabbing treats from picnic garbage cans. Our walk went fine, but when we returned home, we found our door ajar. Blackie Bear! That miserable runt had raided our refrigerator before. He must have been poking around and smelled our breakfast on the table. His evidence was everywhere. He'd picked at our oatmeal, licked my little boy's bowl clean, and worst of all, moved my chair. No one touches Ted E. Bear's special chair. I heard a noise, and we pounded upstairs to find the Blackie-shaped lump snoring under Baby Bear's blankets. How dare that bear hibernate in my son's bed? As I thundered towards him, my big black snout was assaulted by the strangest scent. But I was already pulling off the covers when it hit me. It wasn't Blackie's normal stink. It caught me off guard. I couldn't even get my fierce growl going before it was too late. I was face to face with the beast.
What is peace and a piece of heaven to me? I'll tell you. It's playing my cello and enjoying my family. We stay fit on a diet of love and togetherness and walk 1.5 miles every morning. But the weirdest thing happened when we got home from one of those walks the other day. It started with finding the front door wide open. Now, I don't like to lock the door. I rarely lock the door. It's not something I do. It's just not something I do. I like having a home where everybody feels like they're welcome, you know? But then I'm walking around and I see the oatmeal that we left on the table, somebody been picking at it. Of course, our food had been disturbed before. You know, I had a Russian cousin of mine once stopped and made himself at home. And Papa's cooking so good, you know, it's really hard for like the average bear to resist. Anyway, I noticed our chairs had been moved and BB's chair, that's Baby Bear's chair, was smashed to pieces. I'm like, what's up with this? Oh, maybe your brother. You know, I got a brother named Zion. Isn't that disturbing? His name is Zion. He's a big bear with a big appetite. But you know what? If he had broke something, he would have left a note. You break something, you cop to it. You clean it up. Anyway, I'm standing there, right? I'm looking around, and I get this weird smell. You know how when somebody's cut the cheese and and you think, what is that weird smell? And then you look over and you know what it is? Well, my nose began to tickle with an odd scent. This was like scary. This was like uncomfortable. This was like, you know, dangerous. And there's situations, you know, that come up, but these are rare in our peaceful lives. But when they do come up, you know, you can't scare me. You can't scare me. So I think to myself, what the hey? It's time for action. So without a word, I know what Papa's thinking. I look in his eyes. I grab Baby Bear's hand. I'm praying, okay, that he's going to pick up something from the karate lessons that we've been paying for 6 years. I mean, you know, it's all over the house. So we go up the stairs. That's when it got really weird, okay? I walk into my area, my den, my personal space, and I look, and I like a messy bed. You know, I wanted to look like a bear was there, you know what I'm saying? I look at my bed, and it's straightened. All of my comfortable chaos is gone. So I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, I didn't do this. And I look, and my sheets are neat. My pillows are fluffed, and the whole week's New York Times are neatly stacked. This is not me. So I look around some more. I suddenly look at Baby Bear. I see his bed. What was under there? So I grabbed my cello to whack whatever this thing was going to turn out to be. I kept my head. I looked at Papa. I wanted him to make the next move. I mean, if you're going to be a man, be a man.
Mom says I've got the blackest nose in the forest, which means I'll be a great hunter someday, like my dad. Dad caught a bobcat once. During our walk, he told me how he'd swallowed it in one gulp, making me hungry for breakfast. when suddenly we came home and found our door open. I figured a rabbit snuck inside. I bent into a hunting crouch. See, my name's Owen, but my family calls me Baby Bear. It's okay in private, but I hate when they say it in front of other cubs. If I could catch that rabbit for supper, maybe I'd never hear the name Baby Bear again. I pushed past Dad to get inside. I loved to play with my food, and my oatmeal had been no exception. I'd made cream rivers, butter houses, and sugar mountains, then made a storm with my spoon to mix it up. But suddenly my creation was gone. Then I saw my chair. I loved that chair. It was broken into a million pieces. This was no rabbit. Something really big was in our house. Maybe even a bobcat. We couldn't believe what we saw when we got upstairs. Everything was messed up. The blankets on my bed, which I make carefully so there's no room for monsters to sneak in, were all pushed into a big lump, which suddenly, it moved. Dad's paw was shaking. I guess he was cold, but he pulled off the covers. A bad smell hit me, and then I saw it. I'd never faced a human before. It was making horrible, loud, shrieking sounds, but before any of us could even think, it ran down the steps and was gone. It looked so afraid. Why had Dad always said humans were fierce killers? He just told me it was a good thing he was around to scare it off, and that maybe I shouldn't ask so many questions. Well, the house was a mess, and Mom and Dad were pretty freaked out. But not me. I was excited. I knew this meant we'd get pizza tonight.
Once Upon a Fairytale is a project benefiting the Starbright Foundation. This audio presentation has been produced and directed by Andre Micah, engineered by Bruce Greenspan at Planet Grande Pictures of Malibu and Jeff Hickson at VoiceBox Studios, Los Angeles. Music score courtesy of Associated Production Music, LLC. Senior producer and editor was Karen Kushel. The role of Hext in The Frog Prince, written by Steven Spielberg, was performed by Jeff Goldblum. The Starbright Foundation is dedicated to improving the lives of children and teenagers living with serious or chronic illness. Starbright develops and distributes innovative products and programs to empower and educate young people so they can lead more active and fulfilling lives. All royalties from the book will be donated to the Starbright Foundation. For more information about this and other Starbright Foundation projects, please visit us online at www.starbright.org. Once Upon a Fairytale has been published by Viking Children's Books, a division of Penguin Putnam Books for young readers. This is your announcer, Rick Zeef. Thanks for listening.